It works right now. What's going on? Why are we not sleeping? You're confusing me. No, I know you're. I just am like, there's just so many people.
Do you mind if I plug in?
Oh, sure.
I think that will work. I don't want to lose the feed. Thank you, thank you. That was the best. If you haven't heard that yet today.
Abby spares that kind of language.
I don't know what to do.
No, honestly, she's very helpful. We came down Friday and did the setup, so we could just kind of walk in tonight. We do the setup for something like this, Charlotte, and then we make a list of all the things we forgot, and then we bring them up in the way. So works good. Okay. Yeah, yeah, we like doing it, and you know, if I wasn't clear, I know that I went back and forth with Abby, but doing the live YouTube stuff, this is a big community event. School budget, town budget, appropriations. So we're all on board with that. But I'm not sure if you were here or not, but about 3 years ago, the budget didn't pass. And we went into a cycle of budget presentations every couple of weeks. And that was really expensive for KATV. So that's part of the reason that we started charging a fee for service. But we can give you the HDMI of a recording, and that's not a big deal. It's the setup and management of YouTube is not only stressful, but it takes a lot of prep. We like to have that stuff done a week in advance, and so yeah, we'll work with anybody. Well, and if it comes down to it, seriously, we'll work with you guys. But when I've got this thing that I've talked with other folks about over the years. It's perceived cost. So if you give things away for free, which is part of our mission, is to support the community, the perceived value and perceived cost of that is it's free. It has no worth because we're giving it away. So we have to worry about it. Well, we went down to Oxbow during the summer when they were doing the redistricting public hearings and stuff, and that was amazing. It was a state thing. So yeah, we spent half a day walking through and figuring out the technology, and then get down there at 8 o'clock in the morning, and we didn't come home until like 7 o'clock at night. And
Excuse me.
it's like, is somebody going to watch 6 hours of YouTube? Really? I think, the more I experience technology in the time we're living in, people are all about video on demand. I want it like Netflix. I want to watch it when I want to watch it after work when I don't have something else going on. Or I want to watch 20 minutes of it and move on to something else. Yep. Yep. And the state's been really aggressive about YouTube. They're putting all their virtual meetings, not all of them, but a lot of them. I should go up and paint.
I'd like to call this meeting to order, if I could. I'm David Reynolds. I'm the moderator for tonight's meeting. And before we get started, I'd like Stacy Jewell to stand up, our town manager, our town clerk, excuse me. And I just wanted to say happy birthday. I didn't know we could have a 21-year-old town clerk, you know? To begin this meeting, I'd like to point out that this is the 235th anniversary of St. Johnsbury's first town meeting. So in celebration of our democracy, I'd ask you to join me in the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So just for people who may not have attended this before, this is an informational meeting. No votes will be taken tonight. There'll be no politicking. Voting is tomorrow at 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. For the election of town officers and voting on the warning articles at the town offices on Depot Square. And just to go over the agenda for tonight, the warning articles we will be addressing may be found on pages 65 and 66 of the town report. First, we're going to hear from Karen Conroy, the superintendent of schools, who's going to review Articles 1 through 4. Then we'll hear from Chad Whitehead, town manager, to review Articles 5 through 7 and Article 1 of the Special Services District. Following each of their presentations, they will take questions and comments. So please come to the mic, where that handsome man is, and identify yourself, and in the interest of time and respect for orders, keep your questions and comments brief. I'll alternate recognizing those here in attendance, and we may have people who comment on Zoom. I'll call on others to speak after everyone else who hasn't spoken has had an opportunity to speak, if anybody wants to speak again. Following the presentations and questions, anyone who would like to speak on the special appropriation Articles 7 through 27 may do so, and then the meeting will thankfully adjourn. So, without further ado, Karen? Oh, you're taking the stairs, you're great.
Good evening, and thank you for being here tonight. I'd like to begin by welcoming our school board members, our leadership team, faculty, staff, our community partners, and the residents of St. Johnsbury. Thank you for your many ways you support our students in our school district. This is my 4th year serving as superintendent in this community, and I continue to be energized by the opportunities before us to meet the evolving needs of our students. Tonight, our goal is simply to share where we are as a district, what are we seeing in our school, and how this proposed budget supports our students while being mindful of the impact on property taxes. I'll keep this clear and focused, and we'll open it up for questions at the end. St. Johnsbury is a town that values hard work, responsibility, and community. Our school district reflects those same values. Our vision is that every St. Johnsbury student will follow their unique path to becoming a caring, respectful, lifelong learner who positively contributes to the global community. We do not do this work alone. We partner with our local organizations in our community, including health providers, early childhood programs, and high school students to support students from pre-K through graduation. When we talk about this budget tonight, We are talking about protecting that shared work. Our strategic plan provides the framework for that work. It guides our decisions, shapes our goals, and ensures that our resources are aligned with what matters most. Our district goals are grounded in 4 pillars: excellence, wellness, connections, and organization. Our successes are the results of intentional planning and aligned priorities. Our strategic plan guides this work and ensures that our efforts in academics, wellness, partnerships, and financial oversight remain focused and coherent. The budget before you tonight is not separate from that plan. It is how we bring that plan to life. This community made a difficult decision over 20 years ago to consolidate its small schools, which has positioned us well for today. Across Vermont, school districts are navigating declining enrollment, rising costs, and having difficult conversations about sustainability. However, St. Johnsbury's story is different in several key ways. Our enrollment has remained stable, our cost per pupil remain below state averages, and our student achievement data shows growth. The one area where the broader state narrative applies to us is long-term facilities planning. Like many schools in Vermont, we are managing an aging building. Our responsibility is to maintain it carefully so it remains safe and strong for future generations. Tonight, we would like to share a different perspective, the story of St. Johnsbury School District. The St. Johnsbury School District serves 1,033 students. Approximately 650 students are in grades pre-K through 8, and 383 students are attending high school through school choice. These numbers include students who may be attending out-of-district placements or therapeutic programs, as we remain responsible for ensuring that all students receive appropriate educational services that meet their needs. As you may know, St. Johnsbury School District utilizes a school choice model for high school students. Families may select from approved public and independent high schools. Each high school sets its own tuition rate, which is announced annually. These tuition costs are incorporated in our district's annual budget. The model provides families with flexibility and access to diverse academic, technical, and extracurricular pathways while ensuring that the district continues to support each student's educational journey beyond grade 8. We are proud of our long-standing partnerships with area independent and public schools that serve our students. The majority of our high schools have chosen to attend the St. Johnsbury Academy this year, while the rest attending other schools of choice. While many districts across Vermont have experienced significant enrollment decline, St. Johnsbury's enrollment has remained consistent. Over the last 6 years, our overall enrollment has remained steady at just over 1,000 students. This stability reflects the strength of our community, our programming, and the confidence families place in our educational opportunities. Understanding who we serve helps explain why our budget prioritizes staffing, intervention, and student supports. These investments directly impact student growth. We serve a diverse student population with a range of learning needs, and our systems are designed to respond to that complexity. I want to briefly explain what these percentages mean because they represent real students and real circumstances. 59% of our students qualify for free and reduced meals. This means their household income is at or below 185% of the federal poverty rate. Poverty does not define a child's ability, but it can create barriers to access, stability, and opportunity. 26% of our students have an individualized education program, or an IEP. This is a legally required plan for students who have a documented disability that impacts their learning. These students receive specialized instruction and related services tailored to their needs. 11% of our students have a 504 plan. These students do not require specialized instruction, but they do require accommodations such as extended time, health supports, or classroom adjustments to ensure equal access to learning. We also serve students who are English language learners. These students are developing proficiency in English while simultaneously engaging in grade-level content, and we provide targeted language instruction to support that growth. And 2% of our students are identified as experiencing homelessness, meaning they lack a fixed and stable nighttime residence. Under federal law, schools provide additional support to ensure educational continuity for these students. When it comes to student growth, it cannot be measured by a single test. In order to accurately assess if students are growing in important areas such as reading, writing, and math, we look at multiple measures throughout the year. These include teacher assessments, benchmarks, intervention data, attendance patterns, and student engagement indicators. In our state and local assessments, we are seeing steady growth. Most students are making at least one full year of academic progress as they move from grade to grade. That is meaningful. At the same time, we are not satisfied. Achievement gaps persist, particularly historically marginalized groups, including students experiencing poverty, students receiving special education services, and students are learning the English language. Our responsibility is twofold: to ensure that every student experiences measurable growth each year, and to accelerate that growth so that we close those gaps over time. This year, our students have done extraordinary things. These successes are not accidental. They reflect the dedication of our educators, the support of families, and the resilience of our students. Our middle school speech and debate team won the state championship for the third year in a row. Our pre-K program earned 5 stars, the highest possible recognition. Our middle school students were first and only Vermont school to participate in the Street Laws, Civic, and Law-Related Education program, expanding their understanding of government, justice, and civic responsibility. Our grant-funded after-school program continues to lead the state in exemplary programming, offering students enrichment, mentorship, and extended learning opportunities beyond the school day. And last but not least, our outdoor learning program connects students to our local environment, our community partners, giving them voice, choice, and authentic experiences that deepen engagement and curiosity. These accomplishments do not happen by accident. They are the result of intentional planning, aligned priorities, and shared vision for our students. Part of that intentional planning is recognizing when our students need the most support. Over the past several years, we have continued to better understand the social, emotional, and behavior needs of some of our students. For a small but significant group of learners, the traditional classroom setting can present barriers due to trauma, anxiety, behavioral regulation challenges, or complex life circumstances. Rather than sending students out of district or relying solely on reactive supports, we launched a pilot program, Catamount Community Connections Program, otherwise known as C3P. designed to provide a more personalized and therapeutic learning environment within our community. The pilot has incorporated into our budget because we believe it reflects responsible, proactive planning. It supports students early, reduces more costly interventions later, and keeps children connected to their home community. Before I share the total proposed budget this evening, I want to highlight the most significant changes reflected in this year's plan. Outside of these targeted adjustments, the remainder of the budget reflects level services. On the student side, we are adding 1 special education teacher, 6 special education paraeducators, and a part-time speech and language pathologist. These additions are required to meet documented IEP obligations when a student qualifies for services under federal and state special education law. We are legally required to provide those services. On the facility side, we are proposing the addition of 1 custodial maintenance position to support second shift operations. Our building operates well beyond the traditional school day with after-school programming, community events, and partnering with the St. Johnsbury Rec Department to support community programming. This position supports safety, cleanliness, preventive maintenance, and protection of the facility, which is one of the largest public investments in this community. These staffing adjustments reflect our responsibility to meet the student needs and maintain safe, well-managed learning environments. They are targeted, necessary, and aligned with our strategic priorities. The remainder of the proposed budget reflects level services and continued cost containment strategies, along with strategic use of one-time funds. In addition to supporting students through staffing, we also have a responsibility to take care of our building. We have identified a list of critical facility needs for the summer totaling $396,000. These projects focus on safety, code compliance, and protecting major building systems. The board chose not to include these projects in the operating budget and instead are asking voters to consider Article 2, which would allow the use of up to 50% of FY 2025 surplus for these critical projects. We are fortunate that based on our recent FY 2025 audit, we are projecting a surplus of approximately $1.1 million. This surplus is largely the result of one-time unanticipated revenues, including federal grants, FEMA reimbursements related to the storm damage, and interest earned on our tax anticipation note. Because these are one-time funds, the board is recommending a strategic and balanced approach rather than using the full amount for ongoing expenses. Specifically, use a portion to directly offset FY 2027 budget and taxes. With voter approval, set aside up to 50% in our capital reserve fund to address important facility needs, and preserve a portion to help stabilize taxes again in FY 2028. This approach allows us to provide immediate tax relief, investment in long-term capital needs, and create some stability for the following year. At the end of this presentation, I will share the exact ballot language related to the use of these one-time funds. With that context, let me now share the overall proposed budget. The proposed FY 2027 budget totals $31,830,266, representing a 5.34% increase over the current year. This increase reflects targeted staffing adjustments that we just reviewed, contractual salary obligations, benefit cost increase, and high school tuition. Outside of the areas, the remainder of the budget reflects level services. The board and administration reviewed this budget carefully over several months to minimize impact while protecting core student services. The primary factors for the 5.34% increase are salary, benefits, and high school tuition. Salaries increased 8.6%, reflecting contractual agreements and the targeted staffing adjustments we just discussed. These contractual obligations are negotiated agreements and represent our commitment to retaining high-quality educators and staff. Benefits increased 15.4%. This is primarily due to health care, premium increases negotiated at the state level, combined with higher enrollment in our health insurance plan. And lastly, high school tuition increased 5.7%, reflecting the annual tuition rates set by our receiving schools. Those three areas account for the majority of the increase. We have worked to manage discretionary spending and maintain level services outside of these cost drivers. Now I'd like to step back and look at the full budget at a glance. This chart shows how every dollar is allocated across major categories. Salaries and benefits for general education account for 34.5% of our budget. High school tuition accounts for 27.2%, and special education salaries and benefits account for 13.4%. These are the three big areas. When you look at these major categories together, you can see that the vast majority of our budget is invested in instruction, student services, and tuition. In other words, in the people, programs, and supports that serve students every day. Now I'd like to walk carefully through the projected tax impact and explain the factors that influence it. It is important to understand that the education tax rate is influenced not only by our local budget, but also by the state funding formula, weighted enrollments, and the statewide yield set by the tax commissioner. The rate you see here is an estimate. We have not yet received a finalized yield from the state. Historically, multiple yield scenarios are provided prior to town meeting, but this year only one estimate has been issued to date. The yield is a critical component in determining the highlighted fields on this slide that determine the final homestead tax rate. It may still change based on state-level decisions, including potential buy-down funds and final statewide spending totals, which are coming in lower than anticipated. While the proposed school district budget reflects a 5.34% increase, the estimated homestead tax rate moves from $1.06 to $1.14, approximately a 6.94% increase. This difference reflects both our local budget and the impact of the state funding formula following your reappraisal. Before I show what this means for individual homeowners, I want to explain where the money actually comes from and how the recent reappraisal fits into that picture. This slide shows how $31.8 million budget is funded. About $11.7 million comes from the State Education Fund, which is supported by taxpayers across Vermont. Here locally, St. Johnsbury contributes through property taxes. Approximately $8.8 million from non-homestead properties, such as businesses and second homes, and about $5.9 million from homestead properties. We also receive about $5.5 million in other state and miscellaneous revenues. Now, this is where the recent townwide appraisal becomes important. After the reappraisal, St. Johnsbury property values increase significantly. When that happens, the state funding formula adjusts how much each community is expected to contribute to the education fund. In simple terms, because property values increased here, the formula now assumes St. Johnsbury has a greater ability to contribute. As a result, our town is responsible for a larger share of education funding than in prior years. So what does this mean for the homeowner here in St. Johnsbury? According to the 2025 municipal grand list, the average property value increased from approximately $180,879 to $294,725, about a 63% increase. That change affects how much our town contributes under the statewide education funding formula, and it also changes individual property taxes. To give you an example, for our $200,000 home, the projected increase is approximately $148 per year, or $12 per month. For a $300,000 home, the projected increase is approximately $222 per year, or about $18 per month. I also want to remind residents that Vermont offers income sensitivity adjustments for qualifying households. Information about those programs is available through the Department of Taxes. Throughout this process, the school board worked carefully to minimize the impact where possible. We applied surplus funds to offset the operating budget, and we are proposing to use surplus for capital needs rather than increasing ongoing expenses. Our focus has been to protect core student services while remaining mindful of financial pressures facing our community. So we have reviewed where the money goes, where it comes from, and what it means for taxpayers. Now I'd like to turn to the specific articles you will be voting on, beginning with Article 1, which is the approval of our FY 2027 budget. As part of Article 1, state statute requires that we include our per pupil education spending and the percentage increase over the prior year. Historically, St. Johnsbury's per pupil spending has been below the statewide average, and we anticipate it will again this year. Article 2 asks voters to authorize the board to allocate up to 50% of the FY 2025 surplus into the Capital Reserve Fund. By placing a portion of this one-time surplus into Capital Reserve, we can plan ahead and reduce the likelihood of large, unexpected impacts on taxpayers in the future. This approach allows us to balance immediate tax relief with responsible long-term planning. I thank you and open it up for any questions. Yeah, I'll let you take over.
So anyone with a question, come to the microphone and state your name and ask a question or make a comment. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Is this on? No. Karen, that was a great presentation, thank you. I'm Scott Campbell from St. Johnsbury. I just wonder if you explained that the increase in expenditures was 5.4%, something like that, but then the increase on the warning was an 8.39%, I think, per pupil. So I wonder if you could explain that difference. Thank you.
Let me see if I can go back to a slide. The way I debated about going into detail about that, but the funding formula is not easy to understand, and it also is changing. They have just passed Act 73, and so we are anticipating changes in the funding formula. But our education spending per pupil, which you'll see on the ballot, is $14,479, and it is an 8.39% increase. What this does, if you look at this chart here, we have our total expenditures that we have in our budget. We're proposing a $31.8 million budget. You subtract our revenues to give us what we are going to ask the state for. What is the state education, the net amount of spending that we need, which is $26.3 million. It is divided by the long-term weighted average daily membership. And how this works, it actually takes the students that you have attending your schools and it applies weightings. There's several different weightings that get applied because they feel that it costs a little bit more to educate certain populations of students. Now, we do not get small school weightings. We don't get sparsity. But we do get weightings for our poverty levels, which helps provide a little additional funding to support the students in this community. And the new funding formula, they'll also, right now, based on how they have it explained, they'll also give additional funding for our students that have been identified for special ed services. So the weighting of our students, the long-term average daily membership, it's over 2 years. It's the number of students attending plus multiple different weights. And that is divided by the amount of money we're asking from the ed fund, the net amount, which gives you your ed spending per pupil, which is a higher increase at 8.39, unlike the budget increase of 5.34.
Thank you. So if I could just summarize that then. So cost went up a little bit, and the long-term weighted average daily membership went down a little bit. So the numerator went up, the denominator went down, and
Yeah,
that basically explains it.
Great question. It did go down a little. For some reason, we struggle getting families to fill out their household income forms. I don't know, they don't feel comfortable sharing it. It is confidential. But that identification, if you're tagged as being in the poverty rates, we get extra weightings, which reduces your taxes. So we do a pretty good job in the in the elementary school, because we see parents every day. When we have students going out to multiple high schools based on choice, it's harder to get access to those parents and get them to fill out the forms. So it's really important if you have a student attending a high school that you do that household income form, because that is the big difference that we're seeing, is that our weighting, our percentage students is lower when they get to high school. And some parents may be getting jobs when their students are older, but we do think the poverty levels is pretty consistent throughout, but we're not getting people to fill out those forms.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Yep.
Yes,
Good
sir.
evening, Karen. Thank you for the presentation. This first question is to the audience. When I came in, I set my town report down with my notebook inside the town report to talk to the interim chief, and when I went to grab it, it was gone. So if you have a reporter's notebook in your town report, I'd like it back. Anyways, so Karen, the question for you is, how many employees does the St. Johnsbury School District employ?
We are about 200 employees total for the school district. Yeah. Yeah. We hire a number of people part-time to work our grant-funded after-school program, but there's almost 200 employees for the school district supporting.
Okay, thank you. And just one more question. On page 60 of the town report, down the bottom, we're talking about the CATCH program. I see the student transportation is doubling. Just wondering about that.
It was not in the budget prior. It was under regular transportation, and so that has been moved. We actually allocated it out completely for the after-school program.
Okay, So that was, does that reflect it on the next page at the top, that reduction?
On page,
61 at the top.
yes, so there's a
Okay.
decrease.
All right. Thank you.
Yep, yep.
Anyone else? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And now the moment you've been waiting for, Chad Whitehead. Watch your step. All right, I'll see you later.
Folks want to bear with me as I get my laptop set up here. While I'm waiting, is there anybody here this is their first St. Johnsbury Town meeting? Over here? Thanks for coming. From Nebraska, Big Red. I had a bunch of roommates from Nebraska when I was in Colorado. So I am St. Johnsbury's town manager, Chad Whitehead. I've been town manager here. I've been town manager here for, this is my 10th town meeting. In May, I'll be here for 11 years, so. Google picks it for me. I don't know what it is. It's Barnet. Yeah, so I'm going to try to stick to my pages here, else I'll really run on and we'll be here forever. So I'm Chad Whitehead, St. Johnsbury's town manager. Also here from the select board, Frank Emsall, Dennis Smith, Steve Isham, Brendan Hughes, and Tracy Shao. So on our website, if anybody's looking for additional information, you can find some additional information up in the far left-hand corner. That'll take you to a page that's got the draft ballot. It's got an actual breakdown of the budget. It also has the actual warning for this meeting is located there. Okay, everybody hear me all right? All right, so town reports can be viewed online at that same location, but they also can be picked up in the back here. We've also got town reports available at the town clerk's office. They were at the Athenaeum. I think, Scott, you had them in the bookstore. A couple other local businesses around town had copies of those. So that just gives the information, one, on what we're talking about tonight. I encourage you to read it. All our department heads go through by department and give their updates on what they've been working on and a little bit of insight. I'll touch on some of the highlights of those, but I'm not going to go through and read the town report for you because nobody wants to listen to that all night long. Further into that report, starting on page 34, is actual budget detail. If you don't want to find it online, you can get it in the town report. And just prior to page 34 is information that comes out of our closeout of our 2025 audit report. So Just some highlights of what the town accomplished in this last year. We reached final completion on our Pleasant and Gilman infrastructure project. We reached substantial completion on the water treatment plant up by Stiles Pond, making us the first operational membrane filtration plant in the state of Vermont. We developed a town recreation department. Also, the Planning Commission and the Select Board adopted a new 8-year town plan. And then we completed a number of storm repairs from the 2024 flooding. I think people have seen that we've also sent crews to help some of our neighbors. We've received support from surrounding communities in the past, and I think that's kind of one of the great things about the state of Vermont is we're all here to support each other when we need it. And so we sent crews north to Sheffield and to Burke to help them get through their difficulties. A little bit of history on infrastructure projects, both those that have been completed and some information on where we're headed on our infrastructure. Beginning around 2008, the town had not been doing much investment in their infrastructure. They've been making repairs, and if anybody here was on the water system back around 2008 and earlier, the shutdown like we had on Bay Street occurred half a dozen times a year or more. But the town of St. Johnsbury really just picked up themselves and started investing in their infrastructure starting in 2008 with a number of very large water projects. These included replacing most of our water storage tanks, and it included our transmission main that brings water from Stiles Pond after it's treated down into our system. And it really kind of ripped the Band-Aid off on our water stuff to get the most essential portions of our projects completed. These were quite critical. With a remainder of the projects as we move past those being in the distribution system, so the water mains themselves. There's no real, one water main isn't more critical than another one as far as the entire distribution system is. So what's really driving our replacement of that water distribution system is really our combined sewer system. So we still have a combined system in the state of, or in St. Johnsbury. This is not uncommon, but it's where your storm drains in areas connect to your sewer. And what happens is during a rain event, you get an overflow, and that results in a discharge to the river. We're permitted to do that, but we have to have a plan to eliminate those overflows. So the priority started with our impaired watershed, which was the Sleepers River over on this map over on the far right-hand side of it, and then the Passumpsic up above, and then the Moose River coming in. So we began trying to eliminate our overflows on the Sleepers River, and this was the West Side Infrastructure Project. That came in 2 phases. It was a $15 million project funded heavily by USDA. One of the first projects I've ever seen where USDA funds were actually allowed to be used for sidewalk replacement. A lot of times the infrastructure dollars are made for clean water, either clean drinking water or made for clean wastewater or stormwater, and they don't want to see those funds be expensed on sidewalks. In this case, that was allowed, and so all the sidewalks in the West Side infrastructure area were replaced. But that's one of the difficulties when we're doing a utility project, is to find funds to replace the sidewalks as we go. It's a goal. It can't always be done. So when people see us, like when we did one of the next large projects, was about an $8 million project, which included Main Street, Eastern Avenue, and Western Avenue, we were only able to replace sidewalk in areas where the infrastructure underneath that sidewalk required us to remove the sidewalk to redo it. So we work with our engineers to try to get sidewalks improved with our infrastructure projects, but it can be a challenge. As far as Eastern Avenue goes, right now we've got funds that we have been successful at obtaining from the Downtown Transportation Fund. It's a statewide pot of money that the town gets. It's usually 50 cents on the dollar, up to $200,000 worth of grants that we can utilize those a little bit at a time, and they are for sidewalks. We've replaced, some of those funds were used when we redid all of Railroad Street in 2015. Additional funds were required to do the sidewalks from basically the movie theater up to Pearl Street and then the length of Pearl Street south. That was paid for with downtown transportation funds. We're in design right now, or we're completed design and awaiting bids to do some additional sidewalk through that fund that's going to extend from the Portland Street Bridge north on Railroad Street towards where the co-op's going in. And then it'll also design, or it will replace some streetscape improvements along Pearl Street on the north side from about where the distillery is, running the length of that up to Maple Street. We do have another grant through the same fund to help us design the rest of Eastern Avenue. So Eastern Avenue will be looked at. We all know it's narrow. We know it has some feels. Do we have any room to maybe reduce the width of the sidewalk a little bit to make the travel lane a little bit bigger? That'll be done, the design work on that will be done over the next summer with anticipation of building some of that sidewalk into the next year, and then we'll keep utilizing those funds to try to replace all of Eastern Avenue sidewalks within about the next 3 years. Other than that, we have to fund our sidewalks straight out of our budget. We do have some that were budgeted for to be replaced along Portland Street, where White's Market is. We simply ran out of time this last year. Our contractor was ready to go, and winter hit pretty fast and really lost that window. But as soon as the frost goes out and we see a good weather opening, we should expect to see those sidewalks over by White's Market replaced. So we did just bond last year the water project on Bay Street. So that's tied in with a combined sewer overflow, so a sewer and storm project that we got through 100% grant funds that came from ARPA. We have to borrow the monies for the water. It's designed, it's ready to go to bid. Hopefully we'll see some construction on that this summer. And the reason that that kind of became a priority is at the same time we're looking to extend the Lamoille Valley Rail Trail, even though it does make a connection into our downtown, but we want to ensure that people coming off the rail trail have a good experience, they travel the length of Bay Street, and they don't stop riding the trail until they're in our downtown. That's where we want them. So that shifted the priority of that project and made it something a little more important, so we moved it up to try to get it completed sooner rather than later. Beyond that, so I stole these slides from our engineers. This area up, oops, let me go back. So the area that's kind of highlighted around there, that's the Pleasant and Gilman's property or project area. That has been completed. The purpose of the slide when they put it at the moment is the red lines are the ones that still needed to happen. So inside that project area, that work has all been done. Remaining work, there's a couple of pockets here and there, but as far as large projects that are in the pipeline right now, Railroad Street from Portland Street north to Concord, and looking at that neighborhood, and then Portland Street itself from the beginning of the Portland Street Bridge all the way out to this intersection with Concord Avenue. Those are in early stages of design right now. Before we can get those into construction, the voters have their say. We'll have some public input meetings on what those projects will look like. I expect to see those starting to take shape probably within about 5 to 10 year window frame. The Portland Street project is pretty sizable, but I think it will also be significantly impactful on our town. It's a great question. So our original water system was built in the 1800s by the Fairbanks family. They built actual pump logs, so they're made out of wood. We have found pump logs, not in operation though. I would say a lot of the system was reconstructed in the early 1900s, and then some work was done in the 1960s. And the reason I would say 1960s is we've been finding a lot of cement-lined cast iron pipe, which was only manufactured in a very small window before they switched to ductile iron. All right, so since 2023, we received funds from the federal government, ARPA funds that came directly to municipalities of just over $2 million. We formed a committee. The committee gave some insight on how best to invest those monies around town. And these are just a few of the projects that were funded. There's still some of these funds being expensed, but a majority of them have been expensed over the course of the last 2 years. The Northern Forest Center's 560 Railroad Street project that transformed a vacant historic structure into 9 rental housing units and 2 commercial spaces. We provided funding for the Caledonia County Food Cooperative, their acquisition and redevelopment of 515 Railroad Street to make an 8,000 square foot food cooperative, which is really exciting to hear that they're going to be opening, or they're planning to open, coming this July. We provided funding for Rural Edge Packard Court project, which will, it's scheduled to begin construction this spring. 27-unit senior housing apartments on a site that's been vacant since 2009. We provided funding to NVDA to acquire and perform environmental cleanup of 575 Concord Avenue, otherwise known as the True Temper site, and prepare this site for 36 units of housing. Provided funding to Catamount Arts for the acquisition of the adjacent properties to develop their creative campus. There was also funds provided to Rural Edge to develop housing, one in a burned out structure and the other one in a fairly rundown project or structure at 138 Cherry Street and 759 Railroad Street. And then there was a number of other small projects throughout town, which if anybody wants to know more about that, happy to share that with them. I'm gonna move this mic's really in the way. Some other good things happening here in St. Johnsbury. So based on Discover St. Johnsbury's downtown reinvestment statistics for calendar year 2025, Discover St. Johnsbury announced that there were 18 facade renovations in the downtown, 46 building renovations, 1 new construction project, 5 public improvement projects. This resulted in a total of $9,040,479 in total investment in the designated downtown. This created 19 new jobs and also 23 new housing units. And this is specific to the designated downtown, which is a designated status that we have through the state of Vermont. And then just found out this today, Yankee Magazine included St. Johnsbury, Vermont as one of the 25 best small towns in New England. So we're on that list again. I never get an applause. Karen gets all the fun there. So anticipated events will continue. We've partnered with different agencies around town to try to keep things fun, keep people wanting to come into the town. Weekly summer band concerts with the St. J. Town Band. Pet Parade is David here? Is this the 75th anniversary? 76. All right. Memorial Day and Veterans Day parades. We have the Halloween parade that's been running for a number of years now. There'll still be the bike safety fair. Fall for St. Johnsbury. And then as we saw in the newspaper today, it looks like we're going to have a couple of options for farmers markets. And we're already seeing plans starting to be put together for the final Friday events done with Catamount Arts and Discover St. J. So, number of partners that we work with to make all these events and different things happen here in town. So we've got NCIC, which I should take that off because they have actually changed over to the New Hampshire Community Loan Fund. NVDA, they partnered with us most recently on the True Temper project, which allowed us to divert our funds to be used on another project on Bay Street. St. Johnsbury Academy, St. Johnsbury Town School. Obviously, NVRH is an important partner with us. St. J. Baseball provides some of our baseball recreation. Discover St. Johnsbury. Catamount Arts, the Athenaeum, History and Heritage Center. Anybody believe that Peggy will actually be retired? Or no. So the St. Johnsbury Band, Dog Mountain, Fairbanks Museum and Planetarium, the Northeast Kingdom Chamber of Commerce, Calix, and I owe KATV a shout out because they've been a big partner of ours and we need to get their logo up there for us. And Jamie, I promise I'll have it for next year. So like I said before, as I go through these highlights, I'll go through each department and kind of give some insight on what they've done. Feel free to look back into that town report and get a little more detail on it. So last year, the fire department responded to 1,697 incidents, including fire, medical assets, or medical assists, hazardous materials calls, one significant fire on Railroad Street, as we all remember. Day-to-day operations include assisting schools with fire drills, presenting fire prevention programs, assisting with testing of fire alarm systems, and testing and maintaining of their emergency equipment. They also assist with the code compliance officer, and then this last year we took possession of our 2025 engine to replace a previous engine that was out of service. Within the police department, while we embrace community policing initiatives and work with other agencies to find alternatives to arrest and incarceration, our police department remains focused on its duty to enforce the laws and bring offenders before our courts. So we did this last year participate in the governor's public safety enhancement team with several different partners from around town, a lot of our agencies. We completed training and launched the situation table. And so for those of you that don't know what that is, it's a weekly meeting with several community partners. And it's attended by the town of St. Johnsbury and the police department, or members of the police department, where based on call volume or escalating risk factors, we actually create a group that goes out and proactively meets with somebody to try to get them the help they need before it becomes an emergency call. So the goal is to reduce the amount of calls and burden on our emergency services and get people the help they need before it becomes an emergency. It can be difficult. A lot of times people don't want help and you can't force it. So that becomes kind of a frustrating challenge, but we're all putting our heads together. The situation tables have opened up all around the state of Vermont. They're actually nationwide. And we get together periodically and just kind of try to put our heads together, and we're all experiencing a lot of the same issues. And so at that point, we start to reach out to our legislators and see what kind of changes may need to be instituted in order for us to be successful. So as always, and I think I'm going to be saying this forever, but recruitment and retention of police officers will continue to remain a priority. Dispatch handled approximately 13,300 calls for service. Actually, it was 12,299 in the calendar year 2025. They provide contracted services to 10 other fire departments, 2 ambulance services, and 5 first responders. And we are continuing to keep close track of changes in dispatch surrounding the state of Vermont. And they're also critical for our public safety enhancement team. They give us the call data that we're reading through to see what kind of trends we may be seeing on the emergency services side of things. The Department of Public Works maintains 114 miles of road, 17 and a half miles of sidewalk. Almshouse Stormwater Treatment Project was completed and instituted this last year. The DPW repaired and rebuilt sections on Crapo Hill Road, Old Prue Road, Bradley Road, and Stark District Road. This last year, we paved Adams Drive, Carroll Boulevard, James Street, upper sections of Concord Avenue, East Village Road, Old Concord Road, St. John Street, Bragg Terrace, areas of Breezy Hill Road, Sand Hill, Federal Street, Fifth Avenue, and a portion of Pearl Street. Some of these projects did include some of our FEMA FEMA paid for projects. And so water treatment facility, as I mentioned earlier, is up and running. And then improvements continue to move forward at our wastewater treatment facility, which is primarily focused around handling of solids. Obviously, all this work happens from support from the manager's office and our team, including our finance officer, the assistant town manager, administration manager, the town clerk, town zoning office, zoning, and the assessor's office. And then Preston Sterling here manages our code compliance program, which includes proactive inspections of all rental units in St. Johnsbury. And that also manages a rental housing improvement grant program that's managed locally to help landlords bring new units back online and add to our housing stock. So there's a number of different opportunities for those of you that haven't taken advantage of it for boards and volunteers. I think the last time I counted, it was almost 80 board members and volunteers that that are officially appointed to different boards in the town. If anybody sees anything on here that they're interested in, please let me know. A new committee that's going to be getting established with the assistance of the chief is a law enforcement advisory, a citizen law enforcement advisory committee. So that will be coming up. So, municipal budget presentation. So the budget, as I said, in our town report starts on page 34. Just our budget development. So, town manager's office adjusts salaries, benefits, and other contractual obligations that are within our budget, and we send those outlines out to our department heads. The department heads then provide us draft budgets to review at the town manager's office level. And then we complete our budget reviews, make changes, and then hold meetings with select board members and make adjustments based on input from the board. We compile our draft budgets for public presentations, and we bring it to the select board meetings and request for public input prior to the adoption of the budget by the select board. The final budget is adopted by the board and is sent to the voters for town meeting day. Most of you know this. For some of you that may be new, in town meeting day in many towns, it's all voted from the floor. Here, it's Australian ballot, so it's simply a yes or no vote on the ballot item as the select board adopts it or presents it. The tax rates, though, are then set in August, generally in August, after the budgets are adopted. The select board has the authority to lower, but they don't have the authority to ask for more money from the residents than what was approved during town meeting. So just going through the budget right now, starting with revenues. These numbers include not just taxes, but also pilot payments that we receive from the state of Vermont, fees and fines, as well as any other anticipated grant revenues. It's important to understand that $4,354,672 of our revenues are from sources other than taxes. So the general fund revenue is $5,992,528. Special services fund, this is primarily just our police district, $1,939,409. The highway fund, total revenues $4,295,364. Parking meter fund is $97,000, and then recreation fund $173,445. Starting with our general fund expenses, the town manager's office is $646,095. Clerk and treasurer $203,078 and $170,128. Primarily, cost for these two offices is labor cost. Board of Civil Authority, $6,740. This is anticipated based on the number of elections that the BCA has to oversee. The Assessor's Office, $117,105. This is a continuation of a contracted service that we use with New England Municipal Consultants as our assessor. And then there's some labor for a part-time in-house position to help with administering that. Economic development budget, $168,330, includes tax payments to the industrial park. It continues a fund to develop a rental housing incentive program, and it also has our designated downtown contributions. Zoning and planning, $108,291. It's primary labor cost for a full-time planning and zoning administrator. Maintenance costs of $93,246. This includes maintenance costs for maintaining several of the town buildings. Public safety building, $42,000, includes heating, utilities, building maintenance expenses, primary at 1187 Main Street, or at 1187, not primarily. Dog control, $6,000. Inspecting over the years to see this start to increase as those expenses are starting to become more and more difficult to keep under control. The Board of Select, or the Select Board, is $6,990. There's some training expenses, but it's mostly stipends for the Select Board members. Dispatch Center, $909,583. Increased labor costs and maintains reserve funding for replacement equipment. It's also, as I noted before, we dispatch for several other agencies, and so we do bill our dispatching services out, and we get about $464,000 back in billing and outside revenues. Fire Department is $1,879,685. This includes the addition of 2 new full-time firefighter positions, the cost of which is offset by a SAFER grant. The SAFER grant covers $120,425 this year and next year, so 75% of total labor costs is covered by a federal grant for the first 2 years, with the following year, 35% is covered by the federal grant. I'm looking to see if Brad's nodding. Correct. Solid waste, $42,500. Big portion of this is our hazardous household waste day, which we're required to do by the state of Vermont. We do share our hazardous household waste days with the town of Burke, which saves us considerable funds. So we don't have to run 4 household waste days. We can combine with the town of Burke to meet those needs. So if anybody's watching and they see Burke is advertised for household hazardous waste, they don't want to wait for ours to come around, St. J residents can attend up there. So our cemeteries, $28,737. Primary cost of our cemeteries is for mowing, and this includes or accounts for the fact that we now own the St. J Center Cemetery out by the mall. Balmoral Building, $127,200. Heating, building utilities, as well as maintenance activities. There's a principal and bond interest payment that's due on that from when the renovations happened starting 15 years ago, I believe. And then general fund expenses, this is $1,305,845 or $854. This includes all the town's IT, or the general fund share of the IT audits, legal services, beautification is within this, and then a large portion of this is the special appropriations. Each of those are voted on individually. And so the general fund expenses add up to a total of $5,992,528. Special Services Fund, this is, as we talked about before, primarily it is the police department. We've got $1,546,234 special services, and that includes primarily labor costs, but there is also some equipment fee costs associated with that. Special Service Fund expense, same as with the general fund, it includes the costs for IT, audits, legal services. A big portion of this also includes the transfer to dispatch. So our police department is a customer of our dispatch, so they pay their share of the dispatching fees. So that makes for a total Special Services Fund expense of $1,939,409. Under the Highway Fund, highway garage and equipment, $466,434. It includes all expenses associated with maintaining our equipment and our fleet, as well as labor for our own mechanic. Summer maintenance, $1,449,675. Includes labor, costs, and summer work materials such as calcium chloride, gravel, culverts, ditching materials. Also includes $300,000 of additional paving for next summer. The plans on paving for next year, Stetson Terrace, Hill Street, Pinewood Drive, Cross Ave, Crestwood Drive, Sanger Circle, and Sherman Drive. We're also going to be submitting to a state VTrans grant to try to pave the remaining section of Breezy Hill Road. If you drive that, you'll notice there's one section that hasn't been paved in the last 10 years. It's been being done piecemeal. We are successful on these grants, obtaining them about every other year. We didn't get one last year, so we're hopeful that we'll be able to get that done. If we don't, we'll keep applying. It's a good program, and we take it's 75% or $175,000 grant with I want to say a 10% local match. So winter maintenance, $1,073,939. Beyond labor, our biggest item is winter salt, which has had a considerable cost. and has been a great topic for this last year. Steve did do a good job of acquiring salt, so we never ran out. We did have to be sparse about using it, especially when it was extremely cold. The salt just doesn't do anything once you drop below a certain temperature, and putting salt on the roads is just basically a waste of the salt. Street safety and traffic, $185,526 utility costs for our street lighting. Signage and summer help labor costs. It also pays for striping and painting. And in this current budget that is being proposed, we are including some additional labor costs to try to get some vegetation and cleanup done around sidewalks around the town. Highway fund, $1,119,790. Beyond the typical IT audit and legal costs, this fund includes our debt service. So we do have some loans that we have to pay for past project costs that were bonded, but it also includes for our replacement of highway equipment as well. So this gives us a total highway fund expense of $4,295,364. So two other funds, parking meter fund, $72,348. That most of that cost is associated with enforcement, and then that's offset by permit sales and ticketing. And then the rec department has increased to $173,445, which is necessary to cover full staffing costs, including compensation and benefits for a full-time professional position, with approximately $44,000 of operational expenses. It is important to know that they are offset by approximately $30,000 in program fees. We feel that this projected revenue for program fees is conservative and will increase with added programs and secured donations, sponsorships, grants, and awards, and we'll be stabilizing needs from the general fund in the future. So, funds raised by taxes. So this is the number that the select board is asking on the ballot to come from to be approved by the voters. So general fund, $3,931,111. $3,931,111. Special appropriations, $341,350. As I mentioned before, those with special appropriations are voted on individually. Special services, the PD, $1,580,347. And from the highway fund, we're asking for $2,489,671. And so, I guess, what does this mean? Inside the special services impact on taxes, we're looking at a 3.64% increase over this last year. Outside the special services, 5.94%. This would be a total municipal value based on $100,000 of value of your house. So if your house is $200,000, you double that. But the municipal portion of your tax bill inside the special services would be $1,212. And then outside the special services district, it is $792. I saw that the school had some, just what's that mean, like increased dollar amount. And so looking at our rates last year versus this year, on a $100,000 house, you would see a $44 increase inside the special services district and a $47 increase outside. $200,000 house, it would be $88 over the course of a year inside the special services district and $92 outside. And then for a $300,000 house, you'd be $132 inside and $141 inside. Turn it back over to you, David.
So you're ready for comments and questions?
Yeah, I was going to let you do that part.
Okay, anybody who has a comment or question, come to the mic and state your name and ask your question or make your comment.
I have a quick question regarding the fire department list of assets. I don't remember what page it's on. I have a question because I live in a place without fire hydrants.
Could
So,
you get closer to the microphone?
Sure. My name's Abby Campbell. And I have a question about the asset list from the fire department. I see that the pumper is no longer online, and I'm just trying to understand what that means for those of us without fire hydrants.
So,
Mike.
yeah, and I'll take a stab at this, and Brad, chime in if I don't. So we do have one other truck that is offline right now. We've got a new one ordered. We expect to take delivery of it shortly. In the meantime, we may be relying heavily on mutual aid if we needed them, but my understanding is if there's a fire, you'll get the equipment you need there. So the bond article last year on the fire trucks replaced 2 trucks. Just the timing on them was it takes quite a while to get them made. We do expect to take delivery of that second one. When do you think, Brad? April? Yeah, but from our experience on the last one, they said April, then they said May, and then they said June. If you notice it nationwide, the delivery on fire apparatus has been a conversation that's been kind of difficult and actually made its way all the way to federal politics.
You might identify who Brad is.
Oh, yes, Brad is the fire chief.
Brad who?
Bradley Reed.
Thank you. Pulling teeth.
Thanks, David.
Hi, my name is Jason Marks, and I had a couple of questions, and I'll just start with, does the town plan to undertake any
Can you get
long-term?
closer to the mic also?
Does the town, hi, everybody, my name is Jason Marks. I just had a couple of questions. First, does the town plan to undergo any long-term planning in the next year in terms of, I know we have our town plan, but a capital investments plan like we have happening in neighboring Linden, and a few places there that are looking to, sort of bolster their long-term spending so we can better anticipate what the tax rates will be and what the tax impact will be on residents of St. Johnsbury.
Yes, yeah, we do. We've got a number, like I've talked with you about it before. There's the town plan, there's our annual report, there's our audit reports. Each department has their own 10-year projection on what they want to do. We've got an arts plan that's underway that we're actually working with Lindenville on. There's the Knob property management plan, and getting all those things kind of to work together and putting together like a document that you're talking about is planned for in the next year.
Okay, great. And then I just had a question about the $18,000 of contracted services for the Recreation Department. My understanding is that we're doing a 20-80 split with the Academy. You look confused, am I good to keep going?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So my understanding is that we're doing a 20% and 80% split with the Academy. On the programs that we run there, they get 80% of our revenues, we take in 20%, which, it's a significant portion of our program fees going to them. And also considering that number is so high, I guess, are we considering exploring other options in town? I know that there are at least 2 other free options that we can look at. And I also wonder, in conversations with the assistant headmaster, John Lanzini, he told me that there was an MOU that they weren't supposed to charge community programs anything to host them there because the town bonded out money when the field house was built, and part of that agreement was that the town wouldn't be paying for programming to be going through at the field house. So I'm kind of wondering if this $18,000 is just earmarked for the Academy, and kind of thinking about how 3 years ago we had $50,000 to run a recreation department, and we wanted to get it back under the town's umbrella, so we kind of moved everything back to being municipally run. To turn around and give them back half of that money doesn't seem quite like it's fitting in our long-term goal of running a standalone municipal rec department.
Yeah.
So I guess
okay.
my question would be, is there a way that we can reduce those funds? Have we explored other options? And has the MOU changed from when it was set, I think it was 1986 that the field house was built. Since then, have there been conversations? Because my understanding is that they're not supposed to charge any community programs, whether they're municipally run or privately run.
So on the MOU, I can say that I'm not aware of any MOU that exists, and I'll certainly talk with John Lanzini further about that, so I'll have to explore it. As far as like the $18,000, that's not all slated to go to the Academy. I don't know, sir, if you want to step to the microphone and answer anything further on that. So Sarah Gagne is our rec director.
Good evening. My name is Sarah Gagne. I'm the Recreation Director. And I can speak to the $18,000. In an email that I shared with Jason, a typical revenue split for a service provider contract can be 80% given back to the service provider and 20% retained by the recreation department to cover administrative fees. So in a specific example of a mountain biking program where the academy maintains all staffing, all equipment, all maintenance, all insurance, et cetera, and the recreation department maintains registration and payment, receiving of payments, we return 80% of the revenue brought in from that program in particular to the academy to operate that program. And we retain that 20%. So over the course of a year, these are not new programs that are in place. They're programs that have run for many years. They're operated typically by JV and varsity coaches, so winter lacrosse clinics, cheer showcase, cheer programs. Every single Hilltopper summer sports camp is run by academy staff and coaches and operated on their field. I also am not sure about an MOU. I can tell you that in the summer of 2025, the academy, along with the St. Johnsbury School District, from what I understand, implemented a new structure for how they rent out their facilities. And there is a tiered system of whether it's a private organization, a public organization, or a partnership with a community organization. So, and we fall in a different category between the academy and the district, but we currently have not provided any money to the academy for use of their facilities outside of the programs that they are running with their staff.
Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah. Okay, good.
Bear with me.
I think
We
this
have a
is
comment
yeah.
online from Sharon Howell, who is the headmistress at the St. Johnsbury Academy. She just wanted to clarify that St. Johnsbury Academy's tuition increased only by 4.2% this year and not 6%. She wanted to make sure that was highlighted and that they worked hard to keep that down. And that is all. Thank you.
Obviously, that pertains to the school budget.
Hi, my name's Lynn Würzberg. Whoops. The last slide, can you explain why the cost for the inside the special district was lower than outside the special district?
Yeah, so let me go back to that. No, she's right. Yeah, so especially on the percentage piece of it, because the inside the special services district is a larger budget, because they're paying the general fund, highway fund, and special services tax. And the special services portion of the bill is a smaller piece to that. So their percentage was slightly less, even though their dollar amount might be slightly more. It's because they have already a higher tax bill because of the additional funds they pay for the police department. And so just the way those two line up, and this has happened the last couple of years, especially with the police department's budget, it's remaining relatively flat year over year.
Eamon, Chad, Dana Gray. So the salaries line for the police department includes two positions that are in flux, one of which has been in that way for going on 2 years. So I'm just wondering, for the sake of the townspeople, if you could shed any light on when it could become clear what may happen with those two positions, sergeant and chief?
I would say that we'd be able to shed light on that within the next month to month and a half. There's a couple of things that have to happen at a legal perspective, and then we'll be able to share, and we will share everything that we can. We obviously want to be transparent so people know what's going on within our police department. But right now, we did carry those positions as positions. They don't have names tied to them. And if we can get those officers returned to us and get them back working for the community, we hope we can do that. So,
Thank you.
I'm good.
Okay, thank you. We can move to the special appropriations requests now, and if you're going to speak on those, come to the mic, identify yourself, refer to which article number you're talking about, and state your case. Or not.
Hello, I'm Kimberly White. I'm the Executive Director for the Good Living Senior Center here in St. Johnsbury. I don't know if the town is aware, but the Senior Center is a nonprofit organization that's been in existence and served this community for well over 50 years now. Our mission is to develop, strengthen, and provide services that support the health, dignity, and independence of older adults living in our communities. The senior demographic is the fastest growing demographic in this area, and the Senior Center provides activities, exercise classes, Tai Chi. We play bingo, we play games, we do day trips, anything and everything to get seniors out of the house and to socialize. It's been proven that this improves their health and well-being. We rely on the appropriation that comes from the town, and we're very grateful that that has happened. We're asking for the same amount that we've asked for the last number of years, and we hope that you would include us in your vote this year.
What article number is that? Do you know?
It's for the Good Living Senior Center, the appropriation. I don't know the article. Article 9.
Okay, good.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Adam Kane. I'm the Executive Director of the Fairbanks Museum. So in Article 14, we are requesting an appropriation of $63,000, which is the same amount that we have requested for many years. That appropriation represents about 3.5% of the museum's operating budget. It entitles all St. Johnsbury residents to get into the museum free of charge as many times as you would like to every year, and we encourage St. Johnsbury residents to do that. We love to see local folks at the museum. That was used by 2,859 St. Johnsbury residents in 2025. And if you come to the museum this year, you will see new exhibits on tree identification and birds' nests. We'll also be having the Shippey Family Eye Care Butterfly House again this year, and we have a great exhibit on insect macro photography that is really amazing to look at. So I encourage you to visit the museum this year, and we really appreciate your support. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I am Casey Gwill, and I am here as director of the St. Johnsbury Athenaeum. And under Article 10, I am requesting support for a town appropriation of $115,000, which is what we have received for many years now. That money is about 8% of our budget, and it allows us to offer library services and purchase materials for the residents of St. Johnsbury at no cost. So things we do with that money include programming for children and families. Last year, we offered 652 programs for children through the Athenaeum, which included providing programming for 19 daycares. We also purchased materials. Last year, we purchased 271 new children's books and 399 books for adults. We also, of course, do more than that. Electronic books, our public access computers. Those are things we use these funds for. So we appreciate your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Aha.
Hi, my name's Nick Anzalone. I'm not going to speak to one of the articles, but I do want to give a brief update on St. Johnsbury's status as a member of NEK Broadband, the community union CUD that we're a member of. I'm St. Johnsbury's representative, and I'm the chair of the board. Briefly, in 2025, we reached over 10,000 passings. So 10,000 people who did not have internet access to high-speed internet service now have it if they want it. We have we just hit over 2,000 customers, paying customers this past year. We built more than 500 miles of fiber in 2025. We have more than 30 employees at this point. The big news recently that happened in early February, I think, is that Vermont was awarded the BEAD grant funding, and the relevance of that for St. J. and the Northeast Kingdom in general is that now every single unserved or underserved address has a funding source. So we hope to get to most of those by 2029, or at least the majority of them by 2029. We also we hire locally, so those 30 employees, most of them are local. We sponsor a work training program for folks who are interested. Please check out nekcv.org/careers if you're interested. And St. Johnsbury in particular, St. Johnsbury has been in better shape than most of the surrounding towns. I think about 80% of St. Johnsbury when we started this project had access to decent internet service. There are some pockets, and right now we're building, I believe, down in the Passumpsic area this year, and maybe in the northwest corner of St. Johnsbury. There are a few other areas that we have funding for, but we don't know when we'll get to. And if you have questions, please come up and ask me. I'd be happy to talk to you about it. Thanks.
Thanks for the update. If that's all, we'll see you tomorrow at the town hall for voting from 8 to 7. Thanks for coming.